Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Better Basics Podcast, the only fitness podcast on the planet that I'm aware of right now, Dylan, where none of the hosts are on GLP-1s. So that's pretty cool.
That's true.
Again, the only one that I'm aware of. We have a action-packed episode for you guys, but before we get started, Dylan, I guess I need to congratulate you on the feedback that we did get from the fantasy draft. People, people seemed to appreciate your workout a little bit more than mine. I stand on the hill that everybody who did is just afraid of split squats.
It's possible. I heard some pushback on the chin up, which was surprising to me. I prefer the chin up to the pull up. Like from a workout suck factor point of view, I'd definitely rather do a chin up than a pull up.
Oh, I disagree. I mean, I would rather do pull ups, but I also would rather just do them with some weight so that I can just do less reps and get them over with quicker.
Yeah, I hear that too, for sure. Yeah, no, I won. We had a good process going into the draft, and we didn't really push the board too much. We took what came to us, and as a result, I think that's why we came away with the win.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a long season, and the next time that we figure out something that we can do a fantasy draft in, my guys will be ready.
All right, looking forward to it.
Okay, so the hot topic today is all about something that is kind of conflicting to me. I mean, so Amazon announced that they're going to make people come back to the office. Is that right?
Yeah. So Amazon, the corporation, is requiring that all of its employees return to the office 5 days a week. So
yeah, that's good clarification. Amazon, the corporation, not the rainforest.
I meant like you've also got drivers, like they're not going to the office, they're dropping our packages off. You're still going to get your packages, people. But the
the delivery drivers don't have to report to
right.
the headquarters 5 days a week.
So not the rainforest and not the delivery drivers either.
Got it.
And I found that I was intrigued by it. I work for home. I work for a startup, and we actually just, as of October 1st, are going back into an office again, and have made that decision really as a result of feeling like we're kind of isolated and we need to be around each other to be more productive. And there's all these business pros and cons, and I found this article talking a lot about how the return to office is a huge mistake, and it talks about, things like shrinking the talent pool. If you're in a physical location, you can't hire from anywhere. The morale hit, like people, especially younger people, are going to be pissed off that they can't work from home anymore. Talk about a productivity hit. I'd maybe push back on that some. They talk about like real estate crises. I don't know. We're not here to talk so much about it from a business point of view. But the reason I wanted to bring it up on the Better Basics Health and Fitness podcast is I was listening to Scott Galloway discuss it. And he was talking about some of the business implications. But he brought up a really interesting point. And I want to play the clip on the podcast, and then I want you to reflect on it, Matt.
All right, yeah. So you sent me the clip. I got it right here. All right, here it goes.
Off script here. You know what young people need to do? Claire, Ed, you need to start fucking drinking more. Not the two of you. You're in healthy relationships. But all this shit from Peter Attia and the Huberman Lab talking about how bad alcohol is, they see drunkenness among young people. You know what I see? I see togetherness. You guys need more reasons to bond. You need more reasons to establish long-term camaraderie and affection for each other. You need more confidence to kiss each other. You need more, and let's lead to alcohol.
Yeah, man. I mean, if that clip doesn't get you fired up to have a beer, I don't know what will. But I mean, I get exactly what he's saying. I mean, you look at you look at people nowadays, and it just seems like impulse to be social has gone down. It seems like the interactions, that people are having are becoming more and more superficial, and I really do think that not seeing everybody on a regular basis, and not seeing friends, not seeing strangers. I mean, like the thing that what we bonded over, how you and I became great friends, and the group of friends that we're still deathly close to today is, because we were around each other every day in school. And if that had been taken from us, I think about this often with, the kids that had to do their, last year or two of high school remotely. If that was us, I mean, think about how our relationship would be, just so vastly different, and realistically for the worse. So, I mean, yeah, I get why people would be pissed about this if they are becoming more comfortable with their remote lifestyle, but I don't hate it at all.
Yeah, man, you're spot on with the high school being a good kind of um comparison for this, right? Like after you leave school, you spend most of your life at work or working, right? Like from 9 to 5, 5 days a week, most people are working. And so if that's how you're spending most of your time and you're spending that time in isolation, there have to be some negative ramifications to that. And I don't think either of us here are suggesting that drinking alcohol is healthy. We know that alcohol itself is unhealthy for us physically. But I think we can justifiably make the case that loneliness and isolation is perhaps worse for your health than having a few drinks here and there. And so I think we want to use this Amazon topic and Scott's comments to talk a little bit about how bad loneliness and isolation are for us, both mentally and physically. And so I just want to go through some of these topically, and then just mention a few studies that provide evidence to support how bad loneliness is for our health. So on the mental health front, right? Like we know that it's an increased risk factor for depression and anxiety, and there's significant evidence to show that it actually leads to cognitive decline. There was a study published in The Lancet, and it found that loneliness and social isolation were associated with a 40% increased risk of dementia. So that's damning, right? Like we need to be around people. On the physical health point of view, there's evidence to show it's bad for our cardiovascular health. It can weaken our immune system. There was a meta-analysis in Heart Journal revealing that loneliness and social isolation were associated with a 29% increase in the risk of heart disease and a 32% increase in the risk of stroke. Like, those aren't things that we typically associate loneliness and social isolation with. Those feel like very physical kind of ramifications of decisions that we make with our diet or our exercise. But these loneliness complications are impacting not only our mental health, but our physical health, and actually leading to us living shorter lives. It has an increased mortality risk. There was research in PLOS medicine that found loneliness and social isolation were associated with a 26% increased likelihood of early death. That was a study we referenced on a previous podcast where the U.S. Surgeon General said it was as detrimental to our health as smoking. That increased risk of early death is as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So I think Scott's right. Like, have a fucking drink. Stop worrying so much about these little rocks. We need to be around people. It's really important for our health, not only our mental health, but our physical health.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy what a good hang will do for the soul. I mean, I think about the golf outing that we were just on, and I don't know the last time that I laughed that hard, that consistently. And, we were certainly not taking care of, not taking care of ourselves. We were, having too many drinks. The food we were eating was crap. We're putting a bunch of stuff into our bodies that, we wouldn't on a regular basis. But there I came away from that weekend, feeling better than you would think, because it was a time that I really got to spend with people that I cared about, and having, just having a good time. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if, if I were a remote worker being asked to come back to the office 5 days a week, if I would, be particularly pleased about it. But I do think, as far as, cultivating, a healthy work environment, and like you said, um, just being around people, that energy that gives, and what that can do for, for creativity. It's just, I see it ultimately, as a net positive. So, I do think that as the world gets more and more digital, it becomes easier and easier to isolate. I mean, even nowadays, you even look at how kids are hanging out now, and you could make the argument. We used to, when we would get home, and we weren't old enough to drive, we would, hop on AIM or AOL, and we're talking over the computer. But now, it's so easy for kids and adults alike to have, total relationships with people without ever really having to interact with them face to face. And I think that, there's so much value in just, having a conversation and being in the same room as somebody. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for, getting back together and getting back out there. I mean, it's necessary.
Yeah, these are the unintended consequences that I don't think we totally realize the repercussions of yet. But 10 years down the road, we may look back at this as a public health crisis. I mean, we are so fragmented and separate from people now. And you mentioned up front, it's easy to get comfortable in that space. Like I got very comfortable in it. Like I like getting up and not having to take a shower, and not having to pack a lunch, and not having to drive to work. But there's something in that routine that I think is important for us and for our health. And I'm with you. I might not love having to go back to work 5 days a week, but I do think that it's important that we're around people. And if you are working from home, I think the takeaway message is you do need to make an effort to ensure that you're finding ways to be around people, to be social. And while alcohol, in a vacuum is maybe not the healthiest thing for us, what it is it's a social drug. It has convening power. It brings people together, and can be a really great way to let a little bit loose, to have some fun, and to engage with other people, which is critical. It's so important for us.
Yeah, and if you want to talk about, one of the most fun beers to have is got to be that Friday, that Friday after 5, you and the crew rolling out of the office and going to the local bar, and having that first sip of the weekend, like that's an all-time beer, and that is being stolen from people. So instead of the negatives, thinking about all the negatives, the real estate or whatever the heck argument they were making there, let's think about the positives, and getting to have, that first beer on, Friday after 5, with the gang. And also, I was thinking about this, in particular to Amazon specifically. Their headquarters is badass, right?
I think so. Yeah, it's in like Seattle,
And they got like slides, like
yeah,
they don't like
that's totally true too.
if I had the option to go work, in person,
Right?
then I probably would. So yeah, I mean, stop complaining and go back to work, and then go have a drink and tell me how much fun you're having.
Yeah, dude, it's just another right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to pick a side here. Alcohol, too much of it, not good for you, and it has a ton of value for reasons that are unrelated to the physical, maybe, negative impacts it might have on you. So I'm with you. The best beer is exactly what you noted. The cherry on top is like that one in May when it's warm out for the first
patio
time.
beer.
That after work
First patio beer.
Oh my God. On a
Yeah.
Friday after work when the sun is out and
Yes.
you've been cold all winter long.
We might
Man,
actually that actually might be we might have to draft just for fun. We might have to do a draft of the
ooh,
best beers.
I like it.
Because there's a number. I'm thinking of a bunch of good ones. But yeah,
There are.
you're exactly right. All right. We could do it right now. But we should get to the real reason why we're here today, and that is to tell the people how, or it's how the people can ensure that their workouts continue to be effective. So, we've talked about going to the gym. We've talked about working out at home, but now you're in the gym for a while. You maybe have developed a little bit of a routine. And this is to make sure that you're continuing to progress and your workouts are continuing to be effective. So we've outlined I think it's like 7 or 8 things here that we're going to go through to make sure that when you're working out, you can continue to have them be effective.
Yeah, I think the reason most people quit, the reason I quit time and time again, was I just wasn't seeing the results that I wanted. And I'm very confident through trial and error, and I know you have tons of experience in working with individuals on fitness, that if you do these things, you will see the results that you're after. So these are the key pillars to ensuring that once you're in the gym or you're working out at home, if you get these things right, then you're on the right path. And if you miss some of these things, then you may not realize those results and find yourself off the wagon again.
Yeah, and you
So
might be working super hard, in some of these other aspects, and wondering
Mhm.
why you're struggling. And it could be because you're focusing on one of these instead of all of them.
Yeah, so to begin, I think the most important place to start when you're setting off on a new endeavor or looking to improve your fitness is to clearly define what your goal is. So you can work out for a million different reasons. We've talked about them. We did episodes on the different ways to train, on the different seasons in training. So you got to get clear on that, right? Like maybe it's you want to ensure that you're mobile and strong into your 50s, 60s, and 70s so that you can run around in the backyard with your kids and your grandkids. Maybe you went to the doctor and you got some labs that were, not so favorable and you want to get your health in order. Maybe you're struggling with anxiety and you recognize that there's these mental health benefits to working out. Whatever it is, define it. Maybe you want to lose some weight. Maybe you just want to look good in the mirror. That's the place to start. Define that clearly. And then from there, decide what it is that you're going to do. Don't just jump into some certain modality of exercise or do what you always did. Figure out what you're after and then identify the right program, the right type of exercise, the right frequency, the right volume, the right intensity to match that.
Yeah. The goal is your GPS, and without it you're just driving in circles. You might be feeling like you're making progress, but if you don't have that clear goal that you're always circling back, that you're always checking back in on, you're going to end up reducing yourself back to the mean. You always find your level, and so that's where having something in the distance that you can always be striving towards, it gives you that clear focus. And then every day when you come to the gym, it makes it a little bit easier to figure out what the intention needs to be. And studies show that goal setting, it just significantly improves performance and is going to increase the likelihood that you're actually going to stick with the program. I mean, I know personally, whenever I am floundering or having a tough time being consistent in the gym, I know that tends to mean that my goal is not clear and I don't have the correct programming to match that. So yeah, this is the perfect place to start.
And when you do this, think about it strategically. Yeah. Think about it strategically. Um, and you can certainly set, a North Star, a long-term goal, something ambitious. Maybe you want to lose 30 pounds. But I think it's really important to also consider some more medium-term and shorter goals as well, and some things that are entirely under your control in the short term, so that you have these wins along the way. I think another error that a lot of people make, that I made frequently, was I set this very vague kind of big goal, and when I didn't see that quickly, I didn't think what I was doing was working, and therefore I quit. So if your goal is to lose 30 pounds, that could be 6, 12, 18 months, 24 months down the road. What can you win at in the shorter term that is going to put you on a trajectory to achieving that bigger goal? That's going to be really helpful. This is what big corporations do in their strategic planning, right? Like, I want to, have $1 million in monthly recurring revenue, but that's a big goal. What are the systems I need to put in place to help me get there? I would encourage everyone to be thinking about that as well. So it could be as simple as defining how many times you're going to go to the gym a week, or it could be, ensuring that you're tracking your progress and trying to get stronger. I think a good goal always, because it's so objective, is to focus on strength, because you can measure it and it's very specific and you can see it improving over time instead of worrying about the scale. So give some consideration to that as well. That was always very important for me in helping me get this piece right.
Yeah, and I think this actually goes really well with our next point, which is consistency. I mean, if you have a big lofty goal, something that is going to take, 12, 18, 24, 36 months, whatever it is, then at some point you need to just trust the process and trust that if you are consistent in your habits and you make the right decisions and you show up to the gym time and time again, that you are ultimately going to end up where you want to be. And I think too often we get caught up with wanting to see results too quickly, and then we end up losing motivation, and we don't have the discipline in place, so that consistency ends up waning. The other thing that can happen is we end up we try to bite off more of the apple than we really can chew, where we decide we're going to make these changes, and so we're going to start exercising 5 days a week, and we're going to only eat clean, and we're not going to touch alcohol and all this, and when really what we need to do is just consistently be better this week than we were last week. And if we can honestly say we were not better this week than we were last week, then we need to start over again, get better than we were last week, and just keep moving forward.
Yeah, don't lose the battle of perfect versus progress. Like, progress is what we're after here, and consistency will always win that game. So perfection is going to want everything perfect. Consistency is just about making progress and keeping at it. So choose that. It just doesn't have to be perfect, but keep moving forward. Learn from your mistakes, and you'll reach those goals in a way that's more doable, that's less stressful. This gets people hung up all the time too. It fucked me up all the time. I'd have 6 great weeks, I'd have 1 bad week, and therefore I felt like I'd lost everything. It's not how this game works, right? You're going to have a bad week. You're going to have a bad day. Those are going to come, and that hasn't done anything to your progress if you can figure out how to remain consistent after that. It's when you lose that consistency as a result of a few bad days or a bad week or two that this all falls apart. So it's really important to recognize that consistent doesn't mean perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, consistency is also it's going to look like a lot of different things when you're in the gym, but one thing that needs to be consistent is form. And something that people really tend to struggle with as they're getting stronger and the weights are going up, and they're starting to maybe get a little bit of ego involved, because they are seeing some results and they are seeing the weights go up. Well, now their form starts to break down, and then all of a sudden, this exercise that was benefiting them is actually hurting them. Or I mean, maybe it's not even that dramatic. Maybe you just take an exercise that was a really great chest builder, but now it's more in the shoulders because you've lost the form, and it's just not doing what it's supposed to do anymore. So one thing that we should always be circling back to in the gym is checking in on that form. And a lot of times what that ends up meaning is dropping weight or just not being in a rush to add weight, to make sure that you're really feeling the exercise where you're supposed to, and just making sure that everything is looking the way it is and feeling the way it should, to one, keep you progressing, but then also to keep you healthy.
Yeah, this is the foundation for progress. Like, the form has to be right. I was a victim to this even later in my lifting journey, when I was getting everything else we're going to talk about right. Good form was holding me back. I could not build my chest to save my soul. And a lot of it had to do with ego. A lot of it had to do with a misunderstanding of how to actually progress and be effective in the gym. And so I'd bench press more than I should be. I wasn't focused nearly enough on form. And my shoulders were boulders, but my chest wouldn't grow at all. And it wasn't until I scaled back, I looked into figuring out how to get better form. I focused more on tempo, the mind-muscle connection, targeting that chest, that the thing blew up quickly. And I had sacrificed that progress, that effectiveness in my workout for so long by not just getting back to the basics, to the foundation of how we achieve an effective workout, especially when we're talking about strength training. But this can be true for running. It can be true, right? Like, there's a risk of injury that's implied in all this. And so, once you got your clear goal, you figured out what you're after, you've got a good program to do that, and you're being consistent as you're attacking any given workout or exercise. That form really needs to be the foundation for what you do and how you progress.
Yeah, I mean, poor form is the number one reason that people get hurt in the gym. It is also the number one reason that people don't progress in the gym. And there are studies that back that up. This really has to be the biggest tent pole that you drive into the ground. After you find yourself showing up consistently, if you go in there and are just doing exercises with random form or crap technique, I mean, you might as well not be showing up at all. And I mean, I really do think that if you are not going to spend the time to figure out how to do these moves correctly, then you are just doing random stuff, and you might as well just be just working out in your basement, just doing any sort of random exercise. But if you're going to take the time to go to the gym and follow a program and do it with bad form, I mean, it's just it's a total waste of your time, and is going to end up leading to injury. It's going to end up leading to muscle imbalances. I mean, it's just there's no good that comes from it. So yeah, leave the ego at the door and just focus on form first.
And I think it's important that we consider what progressing means, and that we include good form in the conversation around progression. If you're doing, especially as it relates to weight training, if you're doing the exact same weight as you did the week before, but you're doing it with better form, you're sending better stimulus to that muscle, and you are progressing. And that got in my way for a long time. Like, I felt like the only way I could progress in the gym was by adding more weight to the bar or grabbing heavier dumbbells over time. But if that's your ambition, and as a result you start to sacrifice that form, you're no longer progressing. I think you kind of made that point before. So there are a number of different ways.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, there's a number of different ways that you can progressively overload. And to achieve effectiveness in your workouts, in your workout program, in attacking that goal that you're after, progressive overload is incredibly important. But But adding more weight is not the only way to do that. There are multiple ways to do that. Doing the same weight with better form is a version of progressive overload. You can manipulate the tempo, slow down the eccentric, more time under tension. You can add reps with the same amount of weight. So there's a number of different ways to do that, and I think it's important that we consider all of them. And I think there's probably like a hierarchy to them as well. Weight should really be the last place that you go, and I think you probably agree with that, Matt.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, there are a ton of different ways that you can progressively overload. And when we say progressively overload, all that we mean is doing more than you did the last time. And that is how you consistently progress in the gym. Now, I think an important thing to address with this is understanding that progressive overload is not linear. And so we say doing more than you did the last time than you were in the gym. But you know as well as I do that that's not actually how it works. Every time that you go to the gym, you are not going to be able to do more reps or an extra set or heavier weight or slower tempo, shorter rest, whatever your better form, whatever your version of progressive overload is that week, it's not always going to work out. And that's okay. You know, not being able to progressively overload one day is not failure. Now, if you are doing a consistent program and after you look at your exercises, you look at your workouts over the last month, 2 months, 3 months, and you're not seeing any progress, then it means that you need to make a change. Something's not working in your workout program. But just because on Friday you weren't able to do as many reps of bench press as you were last Friday, that it does not matter. What I'm more interested in is 3 months ago when you did chest press, what were you doing compared to today? And odds are, if you are progressively overloading properly, that number is going to be higher. And the best part is it doesn't even necessarily mean that every week I have to add weight. That should be the very last thing that we are doing to make an exercise harder. So, I guess the other easy ways are obviously reps. And so, that's why when we talk about reps, we talk about them in rep ranges. There is your 4 to 8, 6 to 10, 8 to 12, 10 to 15, are kind of like your major rep ranges. But we work in those ranges so that you are able to, find a weight that works well for you, so that you're not always forcing yourself and thus, jeopardizing form to make sure that you're hitting, that top rep. So, reps is obviously a big one. Adding sets and sets is another one. It doesn't even have to be sets over the course of a day. When we talk about sets, what we're really just trying to do is maybe we're just increasing, if I want to grow my biceps, all I need to do is increase the number of sets over the course of the week. So, it doesn't have to be this huge undertaking. We're just looking for progress, however that looks.
Yeah, you can add more volume. I think the all we're after here is how do we give a novel stimulus to the muscle over time, right? Like how do we continue to stress it? So if we're not giving it additional stress, it's not going to progress. And you're right, there's a number of different ways to do this for a long time. And this is another thing that limited my progress significantly. I was singularly focused on weight. So I felt like I had to add 2.5 or 5 pounds every time I went back to that exercise in my program. And that's where my form would start to suffer, and that's where my progress would start to stall. The way that I do this now is I'll work in that rep range. Let's say I'm in 8 to 10, and I'll try to start with the weight that's going to have me closer to 8. I'll try to get that up to the higher end of that rep range around 10. And then once I get to that 10, instead of adding weight there, I'll stay at that weight and just try to slow down the movement or control it a little better, or give that additional stress or stimulus to my muscle without adding weight to it, to make the weight almost feel heavier to a point where I really feel like I have control of that weight. And then I'll add some weight to that bar. And that has significantly improved my ability to progress, because I wasn't jumping into new weight that I wasn't capable of just yet, sacrificing that form, therefore sacrificing the stimulus to that muscle, which again is ultimately what we're after and most important for progressing. The other piece with progressive overload that's critically important is measuring and tracking. Like you can't progress. You can't know that you're progressing unless you're measuring what you're doing. And so I think tracking your workouts over time is critically important. It's why our workout programs come with logs. But no matter the program you're running, you should have, whether it's a pad of paper, a spreadsheet, whatever it is, something to track that workout, to write down the weight you're doing, the number of sets, the number of reps, and even maybe some notes. I think, Matt, you made an important point. Like, you could show up on a Friday and crush it. You could show up Friday a week later and have slept a little worse, ate a little less, and you may not even be able to hit those same numbers, but could be useful to write down on that day. I was a little more tired, didn't have as many calories in my body. That type of information can be helpful when you're after progression as well. But again, Matt's point is so true. It's not necessarily week over week, but over month, if you're doing this right, you'll start to see those numbers go up, and you'll know that you're getting stronger and progressing.
Yeah, and if you are not, if you are doing all the right things, in the gym, and the numbers just are not changing, or maybe they are going up, but it's really friggin' hard, and maybe it hurts. Maybe you're just not enjoying it. Your joints are achy. Things just aren't moving like they used to. The next thing that I think a lot of people don't give enough attention to is the rest and recovery. Uh, you know, I see it all the time where you have people that come into the gym and they want to just go balls to the walls, and odds are they're measuring the way that they feel right after the workout is, and how sore they are the next day is their metric for how successful the workout was. And we both know that these are terrible. I mean, what you should be leaving your workout feeling better than you did before. You should not have to be crawling to your car. You shouldn't be looking for, the trash can because you might need to vomit. This should be something that you are, it is a springboard into the rest of your day. And, one thing that people are not, I don't think, paying enough attention to is the rest and recovery aspect. I mean, if you're in the gym 7 days a week, your odds are you're not giving your body enough time to recover. And you know what? I'm probably even, overstating that. If you are brand new to exercise, if you are a relatively untrained individual, a novice in the gym, 2 days of solid full body strength training is plenty. Any more, and it might feel like you're doing more, but you might actually be overdoing it, and you might be now crossing over into that overtraining threshold, which is actually suboptimal. So sometimes less really can be more.
And because we're so obsessed with soreness and exhaustion as metrics for success, the majority of the programs you're going to buy off the shelf are going to make you feel that way. So a lot of like the programs we run, or buy or find ourselves doing are typically overprogrammed. Like we really don't need that much volume. Again, I can speak to myself in this regard. There was a program I was running for a while. It was a 3-day-a-week program, but it ran A, B, A, B, A, B. And I was sore. I was achy. It was a lot of volume. I was really pushing myself in the gym, training relatively close to failure. And I scaled it back to just AB to do it 2 days a week. I progressed like crazy. Just cutting out a day of that volume had massive results for me. So there's this balance between stress and rest that's critically important here. The people that are training 7 days a week in the gym are pros, and they've figured out how to make that 7 days a week work with the right balance between stress and rest, or they're on steroids. And so if you're going to train with more volume,
exactly,
you have to train. You have to train with less intensity. So you're right. Like even if you're not new to the gym, if you go to the gym 2 days a week, you train relatively close to failure, really push yourself full body, that should be more than enough. Now, if you want to be in the gym more than that, you're doing something like 4 days a week, that program is going to have you, if it's written well, training with significantly less intensity, right? You'll be training in rep ranges, or you'll be training to a point where you're going to want to have more like 2 to 4 in the tank instead of training closer to that failure. So there's a balance in this that you have to figure out. It's very individual. Working with a trainer can be really helpful here. But if I would say if you feel like you're doing it and it feels like it hurts a lot and you're sore all the time and you're not seeing progress, one of the first things you could look to is just scaling back that volume or scaling back that intensity, because you probably don't have that stress rest ratio quite right. And that's really the critical piece to seeing progress in the gym.
And so not only sometimes is it less is more in the gym, but also prioritizing sleep. There was a study done in 2016 that found that sleep and recovery are directly correlated to not just strength gains, but fat loss as well. And so, if you're in the gym because you want to, have that body recomposition, you want to burn some fat and build some muscle. If you're in there all the time and not sleeping properly, then that car's driving without gas, baby. You gotta give it time to recover. It's absolutely necessary.
So there's 2 more pieces to this we want to talk about. The last one is going to cue us up really nicely for the next episode. So in the next episode, we're going to talk about how to ensure that your diet is effective. And I don't mean diet in like the branded diet term. I mean the food that you're putting into your body is effective from a nutrition point of view and from a hitting a goal point of view. So we'll talk about that piece last. The other thing that I just want to mention that's super important is related to the first point we made. So the first point we made was have a clear goal. And we talked a little bit about why it's good to have a big goal, but to have these smaller goals, sort of incremental goals along the way as well. And what's really important in all of this is being patient and tracking the right things. If the only thing you have in mind is that big goal, and you put in 4 weeks of good work, and you quit because you haven't seen significant progress towards that goal, you're selling yourself short. That's not how this game works. It's especially true for weight loss. Like weight loss is sort of has a cascade effect. So it's possible that you could be strength training in the gym, building muscle, and not see the scale move for 2 months. And then there could be a tipping point where that fat could start to fall off your body and that scale could go down significantly. It's kind of like that picture, have you ever seen with the guy digging with the pickaxe through the mud? And he's like 1 inch away from the treasure, but quit. There's some truth to that in this, in that those little goals are super important, because you will see successes before that big goal is realized that are just as important. How do you feel? How do your clothes fit? What is the doctor telling you? Are your labs getting a little better? Do you feel better? Are you sleeping better? Are you a little more awake in the afternoon? All of these things matter so much in our benefits of working out. And in pursuit of that big goal, you do have to be patient. This is, again, consistency is the ambition here. Be consistent, be patient, and over time you will realize what you're after. But don't quit because you're not seeing it immediately. This is not a short-term game. Anybody who's selling you a short-term game, is selling you some bullshit that's not sustainable, where you could certainly achieve something very dramatic in a short period of time, will not last. We know it from all of the studies. People are good at losing weight. They're good at hitting these short-term kind of dramatic goals in a sprint. But that isn't really what any of us are after here, right? This is a lifestyle. This is a journey. And so we want to figure out what's sustainable. And to do that, we just have to be consistent and we have to be patient.
Yeah, and this just reminds me of why I think that those like 30-day challenges are like just drive me insane. Because they just incentivize people to, to focus on the wrong things, and they're probably forcing them to overtrain. There might be a nutrition aspect that is not very healthy. But when it comes to health and wellness and it comes to the gym, it should be the long game. We should be thinking significantly further out than the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months even. This should be something that we are setting ourselves up for years and years of progress and success and a healthy, happy lifestyle. And so, if you can just remind yourself of that fact, zoom out a little bit, it takes a lot of the pressure off and makes things a heck of a lot easier.
So I teased a little bit the last point here, and this point is just as important as all of the rest when it comes to ensuring that your workouts are effective and that you're seeing progress. And it's about your nutrition. Your nutrition is inherently tied in to the progress you're going to see in the gym. So if you're trying to build muscle and you're not eating enough food, you're not going to progress. If you're trying to lose some weight and you're not eating in a calorie deficit, you're not going to progress. If you're trying to improve some, blood markers or labs as it relates to your health, and you're not changing the foods that you eat to be suitable for achieving that goal, you're not going to see that occur. So I wanted to tease it a little bit here because it's important to having an effective workout in any given day, right? Having enough energy to do that well is important. It's important to workouts over time and achieving that bigger goal. But I think it's worth its own episode to kind of dive into the diet, the things we put in our body, and how to ensure that the things that we're eating are also contributing to the goal that we're after.
Yeah, I mean, you are what you eat, and a lot of times people are, just heaping just piles of corn, I guess, really. Like, there is so much more to nutrition than we are ever really taught in school. So I'm excited to get into the weeds a little bit more on that one. But I think you made all those points, really well, and we'll get more in depth next week. So that was our conversation on how to ensure that you keep your workouts effective. Dylan, let's transition to the Q&A of the day. And this one, this one comes from a friend of ours who asked, "What's up with butter? Is it good or bad for you? Should I be adding it to my coffee?"
I feel like your fat ass should answer this one. You love butter.
I love butter. All right. Okay. So I'm going to start from the back here. Should I be adding it to my coffee? No. If you are eating a standard American diet, you probably have plenty of other way better opportunities to add some butter to your life. You don't need that oily coffee. It's unnecessary. It's a shame to butter and it's a shame to coffee. Now, where this comes from is, well, I don't know if Dave Asprey, the bulletproof guy, was like the first guy to come up with this concept as bulletproof coffee, but he really popularized it. And the whole point was that, the coffee, this was going to help everything, metabolize. It's going to speed up your metabolism and turn you into a fat burning machine. Dave Asprey. Well, it turns out that Dave Asprey's a liar on a lot of things. He was smart on a lot of other things, but not somebody that you want to take advice from without fact checking it first. One thing that is true, this is a fact. If you add fats to your coffee, that does slow down the absorption of the caffeine in your system, and thus it's going to prolong the effects. So I do like adding a little bit of fat to my coffee, but you know what has a little bit of fat in it? Milk, Dylan. Half and half, and you just a little bit of milk, a little bit of half and half. But what has happened nowadays is we are so afraid. We're in this fat phobic culture where now you go to the dairy aisle and find all of these flavored creamers that are dairy free. They're fat free creamers, and so what they are is really just sugar bombs. So you're adding a bunch of sugar to your coffee instead of something that is actually going to help, kind of dial that caffeine, measure that caffeine a little bit for you. So as far as adding butter to coffee goes, it's not really for me, but I do think adding, a little bit of fat in the form of half and half or milk is great. Otherwise, when it comes to butter itself, is it good or bad for you? This is way more your lane. So I went on my rant, and now I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, I think the bridge to the conversation about good or bad can ride on the back of saturated fat. So the other benefit to using milk instead of a tablespoon or two of butter is that it's going to be a lot lower in saturated fat. So we'll talk about that. I think the high level answer to the question is it's good and or it's bad. Like this is totally nuanced, and it's very individualized. So there are a lot of good things about butter. One, it tastes fucking awesome. Like a piece of Mateus sourdough bread with some quality salted butter is a mouthgasm. Like it is delicious. And it is a healthy fat to some degree. It has some healthy fats in it. It contains butyrate, which is a short chain fatty acid that is good for your gut health. Has some benefits with reduced inflammation, insulin sensitivity, and there's some, fat soluble vitamins that exist in butter as well. A, D, E, K, good for vision, bone health, immunity. The source of it is important, right? We've talked about this with like eggs before. You want it to be, naturally sourced, not a margarine, not something that's super overly processed. But there can certainly be some good components to butter. Too much butter probably starts to become a bad thing, right? So it is high in saturated fat. Butter is like 60+% saturated fat. And so there's some research that's showing that maybe not all saturated fats are harmful, but we do know that too much will raise your LDL cholesterol to bad cholesterol, which increases the risk of heart disease if you're consuming too much of it. Butter, adding butter to your coffee is also throwing 100 to 200 calories into your morning cup of coffee. It's very calorie dense. So it's like 100 calories per tablespoon of butter. So if you're not mindful of that, those calories can pretty quickly add up. If you're, adding a tablespoon a day, 7 days a week to your coffee or to anything, that's 700 more calories into your diet. So, it has its good and its bad. I think enjoy it, but don't overuse it or over abuse it, because it does have these links to things like heart disease as a tie to some of those saturated fats. We'll make this point again about some other topic, I'm sure. This conversation could have fit great into our and episode, the power of and. Anybody who's telling you that it's the silver bullet, like the most important, most healthy thing you could ever eat, is lying. And anybody who's telling you that it's going to kill you is also lying. Butter is great in moderation, can be part of a healthy diet if consumed that way, especially if you're pairing it with, other sources of healthy fats, olive oil, avocados, nuts, those sorts of things, and just focus on the quality, right? The grass-fed butters, the Kerrygold. Kerrygold's awesome. It's made in Ireland. They're the way they farm dairy over there is totally different than it is here in the States. So all their cows are grass-fed. It'll have more of those omega-3 fats versus the omega-6. It'll be a better choice than some of those more grain-fed kind of butter options. But no, it's not inherently bad. It's not magic either. Consume it in moderation. Enjoy it. Put it on some cultured Door County sourdough, and yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, and shout out Kerrygold because it is the best. All right, let's bring it home. It is time for the I Lift a sad song of the week. Dylan, it is my sad song, and I've been thinking on this one. I have a few that are like nominees for me, but I didn't really have one that was like really calling to me, and then I got in the gym this afternoon and I put the songs on, and one of them jumped off the page as the obvious winner. It is from the 2012. I'm assuming it had to have won some Grammys, so I'm just going to call it the 2012 Grammy award-winning album, "Some Nights" by a band close to both of our hearts. It's Fun, the band, and it is the bonus track on that album. It's Out on the Town. If you have not listened to it, please do. It is officially now on the I Lift a Sad Song of the Week playlist on Spotify. That is it.
Fun period. They were playing in Madison while Matt and I lived
Fun
there
period.
at the Orpheum, and we walked down State Street and saw they were playing, and I think we both very much regret missing that show. What a missed opportunity.
Yeah, it would have been fun. All right, everybody, you're the best. We'll see you next time.